and Jubilee. Now the headline of the Daily Nation reads, Uhuru Raila allies split ahead of talks. ODM summons all its lawmakers today as temperatures rise over the special session that the Speaker has called for tomorrow. Remember, tomorrow Parliament, which is on recess, has been recalled. This is the National Assembly to discuss a number of things, mainly amendments to the electoral laws. The legislators here on my panel will be helping us to understand what exactly they're looking to change in those laws. On the Standard, 2017 bitter row over IEBC back in full force. ODM MPs plot to disrupt special session of Parliament as party also vows court action to block consultant from auditing voter register, while Jubilee takes opposite view on 3 key issues. But before we come to that big debate, of course, the president was yesterday in Gatundu, and he attended a church service, and that story is on the front page of the Daily Nation, where when the president did not give. Observing a new law, President Kenyatta could not contribute to a church harambe yesterday. Now, of course, the people argue that this is just a PR stunt, that MPs and anyone seeking elective seats come next year will just find a way of going around this new law that bars them from participating in harambes and making donations at fundraisers. Are you finding it, because you have a number of politicians who will be seeking re-election next year, are you finding it difficult to comply with that law?
No, it's actually very good, because harambes are the most ineffectual in campaigns. Actually, if you ask many politicians, they will tell you. Because you see, the electorate has also learned the trick. They invite all of you vying for the same position, and each one of you is supposed to be getting the support of the very group. And at the same time, you know, Fred, the issue is, what does a member or a politician get in return for contributing money to Harambe? It is that recognition. So even if you give at the back door, who will ever know apart from those people that you are giving? The idea is that, are you able to work with the communities? And so if that is not seen to be appreciated publicly, I think many people will shy from doing so. And in any case, it is also helping in reducing the amount of money people are going to use in campaigns. So yes, people may find a way of remitting the same assistance to the people that they may want to assist, but in actual sense, the motivation of public, you know, relation and accolades is a very good disincentive when there's such a law. And I think, but
now, if you can't go to Harambe, so you're left with what? Funerals and
there
church service?
There are many platforms.
Are you still hoping to get into competitive politics next year?
I think let's focus on the real issue.
that statement alone says a lot. But anyway, okay. Looking from outside, looking at the political landscape. Now, when they cannot attend harambes, they're left with funerals and what else?
I think, in all fairness, harambes would never elect a member of parliament or a governor per se. It is just part of our culture in terms of being able to contribute and being able to be part of community sort of activities. But I'll tell you, platforms, and you can see what politicians are now doing. They're creating a lot of town hall meetings where you get 500 to 1,000 people and have a very candid discussion on your agenda, on the things you wish to deal with, and also listen to the community. The problem with the Harambe business, it is always about who is higher in terms of contribution. And we cannot peg our politics based on your capacity in terms of your wherewithal. It has to be issue-based politics. It has to be about articulating the agenda that you wish to articulate on behalf of your people. So I think it's a brilliant law. We've been seeing people going around giving monies, and if you look at their accounts and what they are earning and the taxes they are paying, clearly the Harambe business encourages corruption in this country. So I think it's a good law which needs to be implemented, and I want to applaud the president for perceptionally showing Kenyans that it is a live law that needs to be respected, because if he himself came out clearly and said this is the law and I will not go against the law.
Yes. Now, of course, the deputy president before this ban was probably the biggest contributor at harambes in Kenya. We saw him move every weekend, contributing millions of shillings in churches, and every possible harambe, it was just deputy president donating. Do you think now he has a different way of doing it?
Well, I don't know. Maybe he might find a loophole to be able to do it. But for me, it's really not about the Harambes. It's about the law. And that's why I'm happy the president here has shown some leadership. Because as a country, we really need to follow the law. And we have seen in several instances where people just ignore the law and go unvetted. So for me, this is very encouraging because I keep saying that if you don't follow the law, then you'll have nothing left. But on this Harambee business, even if there was no law against it, I think Harambes is the people who really frequent these Harambes. It's kind of a way of hiding inefficiencies in government, because what are the major things for Harambes? Yeah, is to go and build a school, which the government should be building. It's to go and build a hospital, which the government should be building. It's to go and build a church, in which you should be empowering your citizens to be employed so that they can build their own churches through offertory and so on and so forth. It's for medical funds of people who are sick in hospital. And if you had insurance, common insurance for the normal Mwananchi, then you'd not have these issues of, I can't bury my loved one, or I can't pay for whatever. So I think we need to reevaluate and see, why is this Harambee business, especially now, becoming so popular? I think it's because there's something in the system that's not working. And then the Mwananchi now becomes so helpless that they have to come and to look for you politicians to do that. And I've also found it quite unfair that also the Mwananchi think, because we elected you, then you must come and contribute for us. Yes. I mean, because if you can look at even some of the private sector people who declared their incomes, like Bob Collymore, his income is probably 10 or 15 times more than mine. But he doesn't get requests for Harambes like I do. So it's being changed to be so political, and even a system of blackmail, that if you don't come and contribute in my Harambee, then it will look like you don't like helping Mwananchi, so we won't vote for you. And that's why I agree with my brother Brian, that it becomes a source of corruption. Yes. Like for me, I'll give you an example. The other day I looked at Harambes that I'm requested to go for all these various things. And if I contributed a decent amount of that I'm expected to contribute, it comes to about 8 to 10 million shillings a month. And now my salary is 500,000 a month. So where do I get the other 9.5 million shillings? You have to go somewhere and steal it.
And the pay school fees.
Of course, it is definitely much easier on your pocket as a politician right now. But then it means it leaves a gap, because Mwananchi has so far gotten used to this Harambee issue, and of course when you're doing Harambee, the guest of honor needs to be a local politician or someone who's known. How do you fill that gap then? Because before now you talk about health insurance, which is still not there. The need is still there on the ground. How do you feel that gap?
I think Harambee is a great idea. It is a culture that has helped Kenyans to fill the gaps that have been mentioned. The state cannot do everything. Doesn't have an infinite budget, and therefore there are gaps in that. But having said that, also, I find as a politician that it is an abused cultural concept. It is a lot of people just to do Harambee for the sake of it, to extort money and force politicians and aspirants, sitting politicians and aspirants, to part with money. And it becomes very intense during the election year. So I think it is something that we need to look at by looking at what Harambees are deserving, because everybody cannot build a church or a mosque, and everybody cannot build a school or a health center. We must have some mechanism of finding whether it is necessary for that location to have another church or another mosque, when in fact there is one next door. You have another community building another one across. Both among Muslims and Christians, that's a pattern that seems to happen quite a lot, particularly during the election year. But I think I want to commend the President, not only for upholding the law and leading by example, but also to emphasize the other elements of our national institutions. That in fact leaders do need to have respect for our national institutions, for our laws, and lead by example by supporting and enforcing and consolidating those institutions and respect for our laws. And I think the the president's action in a place where he was required in his own backyard to say, no, the law does not allow. I would be happy to contribute at another time, but now let's pass on it, is a very good example to emulate for the rest of the Kenyan leadership.
Okay. That is as far as it goes in terms of the new law that bars aspirants and anyone else seeking elective seats come next year from participating in Harambes. Let's now take a look at other headlines, and before we come back to this main one, because I know it's a main talking point, there's something happening, and I think it's on page 4 of the Standard. Page 4 of the Standard. It has to do with the committees of parliament, and you know, with this talk about, especially in this day and age when committee sittings are being aired live, are being televised live, and Kenyans are getting to watch more and more the proceedings of these committees, and our understanding of how Parliament works is growing, and especially watching the NYS probe by the National Assembly's Public Accounts Committee and the kind of debate that goes on in there, it becomes more interesting for Kenyans to now start understanding what goes on in Parliament. But apparently, and this is one question I've raised over and over on this panel, what happens after this committee's probe and even prepare a report? And most legislators have really defended those committees. But the story on page 4 of the Standard says lawmakers pocket millions of shillings for reports that never get implemented. Yes? And MPs earned millions in sitting allowances to come up with reports whose key recommendations were never implemented by the executive. This is a story on page 4 of the Standard. And I read this, and I almost became accused. I was almost accused of being against parliamentary committees and how they do their job. But surely you create so much excitement, so much interest in the public, so much faith. People think, okay, fine, now you're seeing these suspects from the NYS being grilled by Parliament, something will happen. It is not happening. This is not the first one. There's a history. Bwana Isaac Mwaura, are we going anywhere with these committees of Parliament?
I think, Fred, you need to look at what is the role of Parliament in terms of representing the people, in terms of oversight and legislation. Now, this is an element of oversight. And so the moment you have committees exposing what is happening by grilling and then coming up with the recommendations, and sometimes, of course, our work is not to execute, really, honestly. Our work is to, debate, issues of national importance, to investigate, And so the onus, the burden of proof, the responsibility of implementation lies squarely with the executive.
But you do have an implementation committee in Parliament as well.
That is for follow-up, yes, on whether the executive is implementing our decisions. Like, let me give you an example. I brought a motion on the floor of the House on the youth, and where we need a youth innovation fund for people who have great ideas that can actually regenerate our economy. But then after that, it has to go to the PS in charge of ICT and innovation, Victor Chalo, to implement. Our work is to debate and to expose ideas. Now, when you have Kafura and Waigoro and all those other people appearing, in the court of public opinions, Kenyans can actually judge based on the adduced evidence that who actually is responsible, and they can make their own judgment. That does not preclude the fact that already prosecutions are already going on, or investigations or whatever, within the independent offices of the EACC as a commission, the DPP, and the people that are actually judged, including, of course, the good act that we've seen from the Chief Justice of creating a 24-hour anti-corruption court. So then the role of Parliament, you cannot blame Parliament for sitting and writing reports, because essentially that's our work. And in fact, Willis Ayaga, my good friend, this is sensational. You have to put a headline there that we are pocketing millions of shillings. Actually, if you look at the members of Parliament, they are the ones who have the list of allowances amongst the constitutional office holders. You see? So to just sensationalize and say Mwaura and Yusuf and others are eating money and with reports that don't make sense, we are essentially doing our job. What then needs to be done, and this is overall about how we work between the executive and the legislature, is how do we not legislate? How do we not debate in futility? How do we make sure that those deliberations are right?
But you do agree that some of those debates are futile?
Well, they may appear so, but for me, I like the idea that people get to know what is happening. Whatever is happening behind closed doors is open, I am very happy by the fact that now members of parliament would be debating live, and people can see really the shenanigans that may go through in those committees. But the truth always comes out. So the issue is there a mechanism where now the executive can be really put in check to ensure that they implement what we have actually passed?
Yes, and of course, one thing this debates could be saying to be futile. The other bit of it is that they're not entirely futile. They could actually be used as a window dressing to sanitize some people. Yes, not really to punish anyone, but give someone a chance to come, and it's televised live, and they come and defend themselves and come out looking clean. Because, of course, this report will not be implemented anywhere, but at least publicly you end up looking like, yes, you can defend yourself.
I think there are two distinct issues. One is the fact that, and the question is Parliament executing its oversight role well? That is number one. Number two, whether even if there is a good report that has come out of those debates, are they being implemented? I will start with the first one, whether Parliament is is actually executing its role as an oversighting body well. Just the other day, you saw when PAC, and it was full glare of camera, and Kenyans were watching, when one woman, Kavura, was given to the tune of 1.6 billion. Now, again, you saw there was a clear thought process, clear line of interrogation and questioning. But again, whether certain people were invited who were mentioned, again, is a big problem. There's been rumors I've been reading in the media the whole of last week that there is a bank that apparently, again, it is alleged that a number of members of the Parliamentary Accounts Committee have received monies from a particular bank and a certain powerful individual within the government. Again, and that is a committee in Parliament that is charged with the responsibility of oversight. Then again, it raises certain fundamental questions whether Parliament actually is executing that duty extremely well, and I'll leave that to Kenyans to actually judge. But number two is the issue of where Parliament has come up with very clear and succinct recommendations to prosecute certain individuals within government, within the executive, and whether that happens. Now, you remember in the run-up to the last general elections, PIC gave a report that Mutea Iringo was meant to be prosecuted. To date, that has never happened. Parliament, through PIC, they pocketed millions in terms of discussions within that committee and came up with very good recommendations. What has happened? Death by the drawer. That has not been implemented. Again, the Youth Enterprise Fund. You remember when the CEO was given outright mandate to sign for all monies. She is the sole mandatory signatory to the Youth Enterprise Fund. Again, there were clear recommendations. Nothing has happened so far. So it is very sad that we are spending a lot of money to come up with these recommendations, and different institutions within government are lagging their feet in terms of implementing those reports. It is very clear that when Parliament says we find fault in this and this and this, then the Director of Public Prosecution and the DCI should actually move with speed and actually present the person in. It is not their role.
But so where is the problem? Where does the problem come in?
The problem is lack of consequence. Yeah, you have these institutions that are mandated to use public money to do some work, and the work does not get done, and nothing happens. So impunity, lack of consequence, and that's why you have problems like this. That is not a sensational headline like my brother Isaac Mwaura is saying. It's the truth, yeah, that committees sit, millions and millions of public money spent. Sometimes they go to exotic areas to go and do these reports. But once the money has been spent and the work has been done, now what? It's forwarded to the executive. If the executive does nothing, then really Parliament has its structures of calling the cabinet secretaries, the principal secretaries, to come and explain to them that, listen, we did this work, you didn't follow up, therefore the work has not been done. Because that's where the rubber meets the road, when you do the work or not do the work. So by trying to do the work or doing it halfway, you have not served Kenyans. And these are areas that I now wish that our public would become a little more active, because these members are representatives of the public, and all they do is in the public interest. Yeah. So when all these scandals and all these reports are written and forwarded to the executive and nothing happens, I think the public now, here and read voters, need to start writing letters to their member of parliament, need to start petitioning their member of parliament and saying, listen, something was wrong, you are supposed to be protecting us as the taxpayer, us as the voter, and you are not following up adequately. Yes. And I think that now becomes a consequence, because now people can begin to realize that, listen, if I don't follow up on this, I won't get voted in next time. And the cabinet secretaries and those again who are in charge of implementation know that if I don't follow up on this and execute the recommendations that have been made by committees, then I'll be sacked or I'll be censured by Parliament. There's some consequence to some of those actions.
Are we saying that Parliament has no authority to actually demand from some of these public servants, because sometimes you make clear recommendations that the DPP should actually do this and this, and he fails to do it? Parliament has no authority to actually summon the DPP and ask him, why didn't you do it? This is a recommendation of the National Assembly of Kenya.
Well, let's first of all go through the process. Parliament's key responsibility is legislating and of course oversight. And once you go through the process of doing your report, it's another matter whether the report is up to the standard or whether work has been done according to a particular acceptance. But at the end of the day, the committees do their job, they do their recommendation, they table it in Parliament. And there ends the responsibility of Parliament. We do not have a court, we do not have a police force. We pass that responsibility to the other branches of government, which is the government, executive, and also to the judiciary. In many countries, issues that are taken up in Parliament are amplified through active citizenship, in which people demand that action be taken on those issues. Civic organizations and so on. Issue-based organizations take that up and they make it part of their agenda. And that's what happens. Then again, Parliament is overloaded. We're passing so many legislations, we're dealing with so many committee issues that it is not possible, there is no capacity to go back and revisit an issue that you had tabled. In most countries, you would have prosecutors taking up issues like that, the Director of Public Prosecution, the anti-corruption, the various national organizations or commissions that are responsible, use that as a base to carry that forward and argue for action.
Are we saying that some of these people simply do not take Parliament or parliamentary proceedings or reports seriously? They just ignore them, like the DPP, for example, has been mentioned so many times. So many recommendations to prosecute this and the other person, but he just doesn't bother with that. As in, to him, the National Assembly is of no consequence.
Fred, in serious jurisdictions, whatever Parliament has come out with, whatever recommendations that have come out of Parliament, just by the nature that Parliament has mandate of the people of this country, then it ought to be taken seriously. In serious jurisdictions, when Parliament gives this recommendation, then the executive have to step up and ensure that they implement that which has come from Parliament. Now, I think we just have a very funny culture of impunity in this country, and the fact that we lack proper leadership in the executive to ensure that those recommendations are actually implemented, and also the fact that again Parliament needs to have a proper feedback mechanism and a follow-up mechanism to ensure that which comes out of Parliament has to be implemented, and there is a clear follow-up mechanism to ensure that it has to be implemented. There are no two ways about it.
Isn't that where the implementation committee of Parliament comes in?
Yeah, there is, but the bureaucracy is not that fast. It's not very so. For example, if it was in many other countries, this lady Kavura would have been detained immediately by the police for questioning on what she had said at the committee level. Yes, publicly. That by itself would have been an opening to take her to court. But that didn't happen because the police might not be interested in that particular case. The public prosecutor might not be interested in that particular case. So the job of Parliament is done once the committee submits its report, and it has to be taken up by the respective bureaucracy in government.
Yeah, and that is what also I'm arguing against, because I'm saying, as a real leader, you have to be proactive. You can't say that my job stops here and I put my hands up. If I was a chairman of a parliamentary committee and I sat down and spent my time and taxpayers' money writing a report, I'd take initiative over and above my call of duty to find out what happened to the report that I worked so hard to put through. So I'd wake up in the morning, I'd go to Parliament, I'd write letters to the Cabinet Secretary, I'd ask questions in Parliament and say, listen, we wrote this report. Can I have an answer as to why the executive is not implementing it?
Actually, that does happen all the time.
Your call of duty. You just can't say that mi nimefanya yangu sasa wengine wafanya yao. No, and I think that's where the problem is. And Parliament has those mechanisms to follow up, to make sure that things just get done. But because since they don't do that, then the executive now begins to say that even if I don't implement this report, nothing will happen to me.
Mweke is speaking as a part of the executive, because he's a deputy president of the Nairobi County. And I wonder also whether he also responds to the issues the MCAs raise, because that's his parliament at that level.
I do. That's why I'm not in the newspaper today.
But let me say this. Of course, there's a way. Of course, you can make sure stories don't appear in papers. The question that I want to say now that even your CEO was a former MD of a media group. The point I want to say is this: Brian has made very serious allegations based on reports in the media about members of parliament receiving, cash. So as to alter reports.
Allegedly,
we have seen people also even going to court to expunge names from a report, which for me looks ridiculous, because how can a court decide that this report and the name, there is a way in which, of course, this country has sunk very low. And I want to say this, as a good citizen, insofar as we do not address the issue of election campaign financing, where members of parliament are supposed to be the ones footing their own bill to be elected, where there is no proper system, even when the IBCs have put ceilings that look ridiculous, in my opinion, and out of reach for the common man who has good leadership skills and would want to rule this country, or to at least to assist, we will have such problems of compromise. If people will bring issues in parliament for the mere act of sensationalism, so that wataon wakando, you see, and that in itself makes ineffectual the institutions that we have set for ourselves and the people have set for themselves, so as to countermand the levels of impunity and corruption that we are seeing in this country. In fact, Fred, let me say this on national television, that when you engage the local voter at the level, they need simple solutions. But then when you see the hate of injustice, when you see how they are suffering because of the decisions that are made by individuals based on certain considerations other than the common public good, of course you are to be worried. And where you have, like the way Honorable Yusuf has said, people would not be interested in pursuing a matter, is because of the motivation that comes with the kickbacks. So our country, and let's just accept this, and this is across the political divide, that we have sunk very low. And if we continue this way, the common Mwananchi will continue to suffer.
Now, what you've just said, and because we're going on a break, what you've just said and the allegations that Weke alluded to, is the same thing that a sitting senator said about the National Assembly's Public Accounts Committee. And I'm talking about Senator Kipchumba Murkomen, because he was on this panel on Friday, and he promised to write to the Speaker of the National Assembly specifically about the PAC and about those allegations. So we do hope that that debate will go somewhere, hopefully, because what we are looking at today is that lawmakers pocket millions for reports that will never get implemented. The accusation of compromise, that's something else altogether.
But Fred,
anyway,
also, Mheshimiwa Isaac has just said that the country has run very, very low, and I think he's also alluding that we need a change in government.
No. Starting with Nairobi County. Starting with Nairobi County.
On that note, Pablo, we'll be back to discuss this IEBC row between CORD and Jubilee.